Well, welcome to this episode of ISV Talks. I'm Carol Livingston, the owner of Dynamics Connections, and your host of ISV Talks. On this episode, I'm so excited to have my friend John Seifert. Welcome, John.
Hey, Carol, how are you?
Great. Thank you. I know this was kind of last minute. I pulled you in today to do a podcast with me, but tell us a little bit about yourself, first of all, and how long you've been with Dynamics Communities.
Sure. So I came to Dynamic Communities in Q4 of 2020. So I think most of us would remember Q4 of 2020 was not the nicest time in the world, right? We were in the middle of COVID and we were sheltering in place and we were doing all those sorts of things. And I came into this company kind of at a time when I thought I was actually going to be retiring, right? That I wasn't going to go take another CEO job because I'd done a few of them in the past and they'd gone okay. But I fell in love with the idea of what Dynamic Communities was, which was an environment to bring like-minded people together to decentralize intelligence and help all boats in the harbor rise, right? And I just kind of fell in love with that. Plus, I've been a tech geek my whole life, Carol, right? So I've been in the tech category and business category and events category kind of my whole career. So I saw the opportunity here with this business and said, boy, I think we could do a whole bunch of wonderful things based on the amazing foundation that this company was built on.
Yeah, and you can add to, your titles. I know you have several of them, but, CEO, co-founder. I know you started businesses, you consulted with businesses, both companies and organizations, but also tell us about, I know you also have the title of podcast host.
I've been doing, let's see, I was laughing with somebody the other day because I did my first podcast when we used to call them radio shows, right? Because I used to run a magazine and a website called Information Week, which was at the
Oh,
time, Information Week was actually the largest trade magazine in the world when I used to work on there. And back when people used to buy advertising pages, right, and read magazines and stuff, that was a
great.
pretty good business to be in. And then I had the really kind of cruddy job of being one of the folks who had to transition a magazine business into a digital business, right? So we ended up building what we called the Information Week Business Technology Network, and it was part of this thing called TechWeb. And so that was around 2000, 2001, right? To date myself and
Right.
all my gray hair. And that was when I did my first podcast, and we used to call it Information Week Radio. And we would
Okay.
do podcasts and such around some of the biggest trends that were going on in the information
Yeah.
technology and business technology world. And I've kind of continued to do podcasts on and off really since that point, all around topics that I just feel super passionate about. And like right now, I'm doing our BizApps Partner podcast, which is a neat podcast I do with executives from Microsoft and some thought leaders in the market and that kind of thing. And we've just recently launched our MVP Insights podcast, which is where we're speaking with different MVPs here in the Microsoft ecosystem to talk about some of their ideas and the opportunities they've created, some of the toughest projects they've worked on, and then some of the things that they're going to be doing at our event called Community Summit North America running in the fall. So yeah, I've been doing that stuff for a little while. I have a whole bunch of fun with it.
Yeah. So were you syndicated on your radio program?
We actually were, yeah.
Oh, were
And
you really?
this was
Okay.
pre Spotify and pre those sorts of
Yeah,
things.
right.
But
Some people are like, what are they talking about, right?
yeah, but yeah, we did a whole bunch of neat stuff there. We, in fact, it's funny, Carol, because we actually created a podcast called Plug Into the Cloud back in, hold on to your seat, right? 2007. We did a podcast called Plug Into the Cloud, and it was right at the very early stages of, what Amazon was doing in the cloud. It was pre a ton of the stuff that we know today, right? And all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But what we used to talk about on that podcast, which was also syndicated, was what the future could look like if, in fact, we worked in a cloud-based environment. And we were talking about really the distributed network
Huh,
that needed to be put into place so that you could access
great.
applications. And then it was funny because then all of a sudden these things came around, right? Our mobile devices, and all of a sudden it was, golly, 2007, we were using Blackberries and those sorts of things. And our first iPhones were coming out
Great.
and our first
Yeah.
iPods were coming out, right? And all that kind of thing. Now
Yeah.
you look at it and say, holy cow, everything is the cloud, right? With so much of what we're doing and all that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been a bunch of fun getting to talk about some of those things on podcasts, do analysis on them and all that sort of thing.
Yeah, it should be good. Interesting. Go back and listen to what you predicted about the future because it's probably came true, right?
Some of them kind of did, I guess.
Yeah.
There's other stuff that, probably didn't too, right? Because you think it's going to be something more interesting than it
Right?
was. I mean, gosh, I laugh so hard, Carol, because I think about, a couple of years ago, we were all talking about the metaverse is going to be this amazing thing, and we're all going to be working in metaverse environments and all that. And then that stuff kind of faded away, right? And while there's still metaverse stuff out there and all that sort of thing, boy, it
Yeah.
didn't really turn into what everybody was thinking it was going to turn out into. But then there's like these
Oh,
other things that weren't as crazy and weren't as hyped up and buzzy and all those sorts
mhm.
of things, like client server computing back in the day, right? Where you were like,
Yeah,
hey, boy, that looks like an interesting way to connect computers together and share information. And then all of a sudden it became how everybody ran their businesses, right? Was with servers
right.
and all that and your
Yeah, it
computer.
became just a normal everyday thing, and
Yeah.
so, yeah, I remember thinking, like, "The cloud, what is that? Is it, like, up in the sky?" Like, it's like, what are they talking about? What's this cloud thing? So, well, let's talk about this app's partner summit. I'm really excited. I think this is gonna be a really important event, and so I'm really excited to talk to you today and learn more about it. Can you tell us what is the BizApp Partner Summit, and kinda how did it get started?
Sure. So idea first came up 18 months ago, right? So it was about 18
Mm,
months ago where the idea first came up. And I was working with a couple of different folks, a couple of folks at Microsoft, couple of industry folks, partner folks, legends like Terry
yeah,
Petrozalka and other people like that. And just
right.
kind of saying, boy, it seems like there's a little bit of a void between Microsoft and the partners kind of up and down the stack of partners out there, like on the SMB
Yep.
side, the SMC side, the enterprise side, and then obviously all of the ISVs. And I said, it seems like there's almost I don't know, you've got the biggest of the big folks who get to be a part of things like inner circle and pack groups and those sorts of things. But then you've got all the rest of us, right, who don't have a whole lot of that access. And we're trying to figure out, boy, how do you go online to find
Yeah,
stuff, or how do you try to build a connection here, a connection there? So initially we thought, boy, 18 months ago, hey, let's launch something, let's create something and all that sort of stuff. And then we started going through the process and saying, boy, maybe we don't want to launch something really big, really fast. Why don't we kind of take a breath and pay attention to what partners are doing, how they're working with
sure.
customers, how they're working with Microsoft and all that. And so we came up with the idea in 2023 to do a pre-conference at Summit North America when we were in Charlotte, and we called it the Partner Pre-Conference. And we did it as a half-day program, got a bunch of great folks from Microsoft to be a part of this with us. And we said, boy, let's just kind of make this we literally called it like a fast track, right? Let's fast track folks for like 4 hours into a really how many people can we get in the room at one time from Microsoft to share ideas and insights
Right.
for partners so that they could leave understanding better how to work with Microsoft? The the funny thing was, boy, we got that done. We had a whole bunch of stuff that we were able to get done, and I think it helped some folks out. But boy, it was a lot to digest in a half a day,
Mhm.
right? So that was a little tough for folks, but it was neat that we were able to start to build some of those connections for people. And so what we did was we said, boy, why don't we use our 2 ears and one mouth that we have, and let's go listen to what folks liked about it and ask them what else they would like us to do. And so we did a survey immediately following the event. About 80% of the folks that attended said, we'd like to do more of this sort of thing. It was helpful, gave me different connections and answered some questions for me. But boy, can you do it in a little bit longer of a time and maybe make it, standalone. So not just a part of Summit North America, but maybe something on its own. So that was where the idea of BizApps Partner Summit came from. And we started working with the gang over at Microsoft and working with some new partners that we were talking to, say, hey, what would be good timing for something like this? And initially we were thinking of doing something in Q1 2024, but then a few executives at Microsoft said, golly, we've got shackles on our hands here in the first half of the year until the new fiscal starts. Why don't we try to do something after the new fiscal year starts, which I think everybody knows starts on
Uh,
July 1st.
yeah.
And so that was how the timing came about to do this event July 24th and 25, so that we could kind of have the first partner event of the new fiscal year, bring Microsoft together with
Mm,
partners kind of up and down that stack again of SMB,
yeah,
SMC, enterprise, and ISVs.
right together at the beginning of the year. It's kind of the kickoff for the
Got
fiscal
it.
year, right?
You got it. And so the Microsoft gang really started to like that idea, started sharing it with a few partners. They like that idea. And, it's July, right? It's a summertime. So some people won't be able to make it because they'll be on vacation, right? Or that type of thing. But it's okay. That's how it goes. But in order to get the best possible environment for us, we said, hey, let's do it in Washington State. So we're doing it in Bellevue, Washington at the
Mhm.
Hilton, and let's do it over 2 days. And then what we said was, let's make this a 24-hour immersion into fiscal year 25 priorities and opportunities and programs and all that. So we're actually starting at noon on the 24th with a luncheon. And we've got sessions that run for the half a day, and then a networking session that evening that we're just calling
Of
Partner
course.
Engage. And then on the 25th, we're doing another half a day. And so we'll end at about 1 o'clock in the afternoon on the 25th. We've got a number of incredible speakers from engineering side of the house with like Donald Kosman, who's Vice President of Business Copilot AI, who's going to kick the event off with us,
Oh,
talking about the big stuff that partners should know about what's going on with Copilot and how it's infused
mhm.
into the Dynamics practices and platforms and that kind of thing. And then we're going to have a number of panel discussions that break down how to work with folks in field, for example, right? If you're a partner, hey, how do you work with the SMB field folks and channel
Yeah.
folks? How do you work with SMC field folks? And how do you do things like co-sell and co-creation and that kind of thing at the point of the
Yeah.
customer? Same thing on the enterprise side. We're going to have a really neat fireside chat with Dan Rippey, who is the Microsoft AI Cloud Partner Program leader over at Microsoft, and share with us some of the strategic things going on there. Folks like Cecilia Flombaum and Peter Jensen and Steve Cohen and a whole bunch of wonderful folks that are going to be sharing their expertise and connection here with everybody in the community for that 24-hour immersion. So pretty darn excited about it.
Yeah, and kind of going back to the feedback you got from the partners last year, kind of is the theme this year kind of based on that feedback you got, or?
Yeah, so what we started to do, well, the theme of being able to immerse yourself for 24 hours is a big part of the feedback. So, hey, 4 hours trying to do it was not a long enough time, so let's do it over a day, right?
Right.
But then the other feedback was, hey, let's make it easy for folks to come in and out. So if you're traveling from the East Coast to Washington, you could fly out in the morning and still be there in time when the event starts for lunch. And then if you're flying back to the East Coast in the afternoon on the 25th, you can leave in time to catch a flight to get back home and that kind of thing. So that was two big parts of the feedback was, hey, let's give it a little bit more time and let's make it easy in and out for folks. So really tried to listen to that. The other big theme was done both on feedback and on just looking at how a whole bunch of other partner events kind of work and that kind of thing. So we started looking for what the voids were in other partner events that were out there. And, there were two
Okay.
things that we really started to notice. Number one, a void was there wasn't a lot of information about how the sessions you would go to or the speakers, how those folks were going to help you figure out how to scale your practice, right? How to scale the number of customers you have, scale
Mm,
the types of industries you're talking to, scale your revenue, right? Scale whatever
right.
model you're looking at to scale. So we really wanted to make the premise here, hey, scaling your Microsoft practice, whether you're an
Mhm.
ISV or a consultant or a systems integrator. And then the second thing was one of my favorite topics, which is dazzling customers, right? So the
Yeah.
best way to grow your business is when you're dazzling customers, right? You're
Right.
really helping them with their businesses and that kind of thing as a partner in this channel.
Yeah.
So we said, boy, let's make everything about scaling your practice and how that really happens by dazzling customers with great programming, great projects, great programs that those customers can put into their business. And we then, as partners, whether you're an ISV or a systems integrator or a consultant, we get to be the people in the front seat of that roller coaster working with the customer, while
Mhm.
Microsoft, through the connections you can make at BizApps Partner Summit, are behind you to be able to support you and help with co-creation and co-selling and that kind of thing.
Right. And I do think that, not only customers, but partners are still challenged on how do I incorporate things like Copilot, and how do I take advantage of modernizing people's environments and their systems and their processes so yeah, it sounds like it's going to be really practical and right where partners need to get that extra help from Microsoft. Do you know how many people are planning to attend, or do you kind of have an idea of your target attendees?
Yeah, so when I do this sort of stuff. I really try to make it to where we don't go out and say, we're going to be the biggest and best thing since you learned how to slice bread, right? When we're first starting it. I
Mhm.
would much rather kind of start smaller and then make sure that we're on the right track for folks and that sort of thing, and then
Yeah,
start to get a little bit bigger. We had about 150 or so folks that were part of the partner pre-conference when we did it in Charlotte. For BizApps Partner Summit, we've got room for about 300 folks, right around 300 folks to be a part of the event
okay.
here at BizApps
Yeah,
Partner Summit, and we're pacing to be at that about that number, right? About 300 or so folks that'll be a part of it.
yeah,
And then based on
okay.
how everything goes here in Bellevue, then we'll say, boy, do we do a little bit more next year, right? Do we maybe
Yeah,
scale it a day and a half as opposed to a 24-hour immersion or 2 days? And do we go from 300 folks to 500 or 600 folks?
mhm,
But part of the strategic process that we're trying to put in place with this is, hey, let's not try to boil the ocean really fast, right? Let's instead make sure we're using the two ears, one mouth approach to what did we learn at that point? What did we learn at this point? What is the community really looking for here? What's it looking for there? And then try to
yeah,
be that
that
kind
makes
of
sense.
filter between the stuff Microsoft's trying to create, what partners are really looking for, bring those things together and hopefully have an event that really helps folks out.
Yeah, and I like that it's an in-person event, I attend a lot of Microsoft as Inspire, they have a lot of great conferences and resources, but you don't ever get that interaction with the Microsoft leadership. So this is like sounds like perfect. Like if I was a partner, I would definitely wanna attend, but who do you recommend? Like, if I'm a partner and I'm looking at my team, like, who should I send? Who should attend? Like,
Great question. So I can tell you the folks who have registered so far, right? So, because I was just actually going through some of that data with folks, but it's a mix of very senior folks like CEOs of practices and vice presidents of alliances and partnerships and folks in charge of revenue, right? And those sorts of things from partners that are being part of it. So pretty senior folks there. We're also seeing a fair bit of folks coming from the kind of go-to market side from the partners. So people trying to figure out, boy, I am a head of go-to-market for a systems integrator, for example. Hey, I want to go here so I can make sure I understand what all those programs are that are coming out, and then I can embed them into the context of the
yeah.
stuff that we're going to market with for customers. So we're seeing a lot of those types of folks. Pretty senior people, it looks like, are planning to attend from the
Okay.
partners. But I think that also plays into the fact that they get to connect with a whole lot of the people from Microsoft that are going to be there, to shake a hand here or talk about a customer there and that kind of thing. We purposely built the premise of the entire agenda in the program to say, golly, let's not make this about just one type of partner, because every type of partner wants to scale their practice and they want to dazzle their customers. So let's have programming for enterprise partners. Let's have programming for SMC partners. Let's have programming for SMB partners. And let's have programming for ISVs who kind of may sell up and down that stack, right? All over the place.
Right.
And let's really make it about bringing people together so we can kind of do what the whole foundation of this business was originally based on. And that is decentralizing intelligence so we can all do better and better and better every single day.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, I think you also mentioned about how and why to work with the Microsoft field or sellers and things like that. I feel like there's a ton of people at Microsoft, and it's like, how do you get in touch with the right people? How do you get those programs and incentives that are offered? And I think it's smart to have this at the beginning of FY, the fiscal year for Microsoft, because they always announce new programs. And it takes a while to kind of like, okay, what is this and how do we apply for it? It's good to kind of kick off the year like this.
Thanks, Carol. Yeah, we think that field part, to your point, that can be a tough one to figure out, right? For so
Yeah.
many folks, hey, who do I talk to? How do I talk to them? That kind of thing. So that whole part of the program, we're going to start off with Brian Ruche on. It's actually part of the day one program, but starting off with Brian Ruche, and he's going to actually talk through what does the entire Microsoft field organization look like, right? What does enterprise look like? What does SMC look like? SMB, that kind of thing. And he's literally going to architect it out. Hey, what does it look like? And then we're going to have a session with a couple of folks from SMB. We're going to have a session with a few folks from SMC and a session with folks from enterprise that are literally in charge of the field go-to-market approaches that Microsoft is taking, talking about how do you work with me? right? How do you connect with me? How do we work together? How do we do all of this
Yeah,
to dazzle customers and such? So we really just kind of set up to say, boy, let's demystify this stuff and let's take those things that were maybe
thank
just
you.
available to like a small few and let's just make it available to everybody because then we all get a chance to win.
Yeah. I like that it's 24 hours. You can kind of come in, get information, network, ask questions, and then you have time to go back and kind of implement it, and you've got time to talk to Microsoft if you need that too. How can people learn more about the conference and where do they register? Can they see the agenda, like the speakers, etc.?
So all at one place. You can do all those things at bizappspartner.com. BIZAPPS partner.com. We figured, hey, we're all BizApps partners, so let's just make that the URL, right? To make it
Yeah,
easy. But up
easy.
there,
Yeah.
yeah, you can see the entire agenda. You can see each one of the speakers. You can register to join us. If you're interested in registering, please do it kind of swiftly if you can, because I don't want to
Yeah.
be in a sellout environment where folks who want to come can't be there.
Right.
So the early bird pricing is unfortunately over at this point. It was $799 to come with the early bird pricing. It's now $999. However, if you pay attention on social media, you will see a promo code that is available for
Oh,
all of us as BizApps partners to still lock in that $799 rate to be a part of it. So keep an
wow.
eye out for that.
So watch your LinkedIn post for that Microsoft discount code. Well, thank you, John, for joining us today on this episode of ISV Talks and telling us a little bit more about the Biz Apps Partner Summit in July.
Thank you, Carol, for having me. Always a pleasure to see you. Always just love having conversations with you. So thanks for inviting me to be a part of it.
Of
And
course.
and yeah, we're, again, the easiest thing to do is just go to bizappspartner.com to get the skinny on everything. And hey, tune into the podcast. You can get to it at bizappspartner.com as well, right up there under the podcast section. But bunch of great discussions with folks at Microsoft, some wonderful partners out there, and all with the goal of, again, scaling our practices and dazzling customers. So, Carol, thanks so much for having me.
Thanks, John. So, well, friends, I'll see you on the next episode of ISV Talk videos. Have a good day. Bye bye.
See you, folks.